Okay. All right, we'll get started in 10 seconds. B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach, shiur Torah, bruchim habayim. We're back here on our Wednesday night Stump the Rabbi, where after some divrei Torah, you guys will ask some questions. BeEzrat HaShem HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give us the answers. Tonight's shiur is for the refuah shlema and hatzlacha rabba for Efraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Sarah bat Levana, Avimori David ben Nesriya, Imimorati Doris bat Jora, and a very big mazal tov to our family. My dear brother and his wife just had a baby girl. BeEzrat HaShem, they'll have a lot of success raising her with Torah and mitzvot and brachot and all the yeshuot BeEzrat HaShem. Chaim arukim, shlemim, meleim Torah, mitzvot, v'gmilut chasadim BeEzrat HaShem. And thank you very much to all of the supporters, all those that are donating on our website, BeEzratHashem.org, or if they're donating with cryptocurrency or other ways, or even if they're donating with their time. Lots of new volunteers, Baruch Hashem, have joined Team Hashem over these this past several weeks or past month or so. And Baruch Hashem, they're adding a lot of new skills, a lot of new efforts. And Baruch Hashem, it's already creating fruits. So Baruch Hashem for that. Anyone that wants to donate can go to BeEzratHashem.org. If you want to simply donate your time by distributing our material in your community, you want to distribute the books, you want to distribute the USBs, you can go to kiruvstore.org and get some books, some of the Shayatzar posters, and distribute them for free in your community. We even pay for the shipping if you're located in the US. So, Rabotai Karim, tonight we have an extraordinarily important shiur because we're not only starting a new parasha, but also a new book in the Torah, Sefer Dvarim, the book of Deuteronomy, Parashat Dvarim, but also we are going to delve into the ultimate mitzvah. Now, I'm sure if you've been watching my lectures for enough time, you've heard me say a thing or two about Yirat Shamayim, about fear of heaven. But have you ever heard of the mitzvah, in essence, the commandment, not to be afraid of anyone? Just like there's a commandment to have fear of heaven, there's also a commandment not to be afraid. Now, to understand the depth and the meaning of this, we have to dig deeper into this parasha, Parashat Dvarim, and the words of the sages in order to see how applicable and relevant this is to our lives. Parashat Dvarim starts off the personal journal of Moshe Rabbeinu. Chazal tell us that this was in essence what Moshe Rabbeinu wrote himself. And that's why it's spoken in first person, rather than the first books of the 5 books of Moses, where it's spoken in, from the perspective of Hashem. And Hashem gave prophecies to Moshe Rabbeinu in every part of the Torah, including Sefer Dvarim, and thereby told him to include this as the 5th book of the Torah. And Moshe Rabbeinu uses this journal to rebuke Am Yisrael, to tell them about the mistakes they've made, but also how to fix them. He gives them the laws, and he gives them the foundation of all Musar. And after he tells them, reminds them of some of the things that they've done, whether it's the golden calf or the sin with the spies or complaining about the manna, Moshe Rabbeinu tells Am Yisrael that they have to have leaders, dayanim, They have to have judges, those that are Talmidei Chachamim, that will issue the rulings. But even every individual Jew also has to be a ruler in his home, a ruler in his community to a certain extent. And thereby this is applicable to everyone to a certain extent. And in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 1, verse number 17, Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Lo taguru mipnei ish, ki hamishpat leElohim hi, והדבר אשר יקשה מכם תקרבון אליי ושמעתיו." You shall not tremble before any man, for the judgment is God's. Any matter that's too difficult for you, you shall bring to me, and I shall hear it. See, here we see that Moshe Rabbeinu and the Torah itself does something unusual. If you look at all of the mitzvot in the Torah, whether it's the Parah Adumah or Shabbat, generally speaking, the written Torah does not give an explanation of why Hashem is doing what He's doing, why He's commanding this. But here you see that Moshe Rabbeinu is saying in the name of Hashem that you have a commandment not to be afraid of any man. Why? Because the judgment is God's. What does that mean, the judgment is God's? How is this applicable to your life today? Well, Rabotai, one of the understandings we will find out from this mitzvah is that a person that's able to fulfill this mitzvah of not being afraid of anyone is literally fulfilling the entire Torah, if he knows how to do it right. Because this mitzvah includes bitachon in Hashem, emunah in Hashem, yirat shamayim. Now, before we get into that, we have to understand the landscape we're in, the world we live in, where one of the worst attributes, one of the worst midot, one of the worst character traits that a person can have is to be a copycat, where they're easily influenced by other people. And the reason why is because there will come a day that a wicked person will be next to you. And if you're easily influenced, you'll start copying them. You'll start doing what they do. You'll be ashamed not to follow their words, even if their words are against Hashem. And of course, the Satan always sends those people and they start off small. Like the PH Kids episode that came out in the last week about how the Satan starts off with a small nail in a big house, only to ultimately take over the entire house. A person that allows themselves to be easily influenced doesn't think about the ramifications of what this could lead to. But the reality is that a person that's easily influenced does not realize how horrible it is. And if a person is the influencer, a terminology that has become very popular in the world today of YouTube and so on, if you're an influencer and your influence is a damaging influence, you don't realize how horrible the damage that you cause and how unquantifiable the punishment will be. This is one of the things we discussed in the film Or Ganuz that we released several months ago, where these so-called Jewish podcasters that talk about going off the derech and all types of heretical beliefs that they have don't realize how horrible these things are going to end up being for them. Because while they think, I'm just saying my perspective, that I don't want to do it, I don't believe, I don't this, I don't that, you think that you're saying your perspective, but in reality, you're saying it to other people. Needless to say, you're saying it to the public at large. And there will be some people that will be impacted by it. People that are weak characters, people that are easily influenced. And when they follow your heretical advice, the damage can be unquantifiable. To put things in perspective, is a story that I heard from my Rav Efraim, Hashem bless him, give him many days, many years, and lots of success in his Torah and mitzvot and gmilut chasadim and kiruv. He told me that when he was a kid, we're talking about decades ago, he went on a trip with his family. They went to some place where people picnic and do all types of things where they're enjoying the beautiful land of Israel. And he went with his family, and there were other families that came. And he says, in this trip, there were two women. One was a religious Jewish woman that was very modest, covered her hair with a mitpachat. The clothes were fitting her wide fitting, so you don't see the shape of her body, just in accordance to halakha. And the other one was a more so-called modern type of religious woman with a long wig, longer than the exile, tight-fitting clothes, with the nose up in the air like she's high society. And on this trip, while everyone is trying to have fun, all of a sudden, the high society from Jew decides that she's going to make fun of the other woman that is more according to halakha, the tzadikah. How does she make fun of her? In front of everyone. She says, look at you. Look at how you look. With the shmata on your head and your white clothes, all this rags you have on you. You look like the Ben Ish Chai. You look like one of these old Sephardi rabbis from Baghdad. Now everyone there is Sephardi, so she's not like Ashkenazi versus Sephardi. Even the wig-wearing woman is Sephardi, but apparently she doesn't realize where she came from. And she says this embarrassing thing, or what seems to be embarrassing at least, in front of everyone. Rabbi Efraim says, even though I was little, I already had this thing in me where I always wanted to defend people that were weak, but I didn't need to in this time. Because the righteous woman says to the high society woman that just tried to embarrass her, you can make fun of my clothes, my mitpachat, the way I look, as much as you want. But at least I'm not someone that causes the public to sin, a machtiar rabim, like you, with the way you dress. With her long wig and her tight clothes that are provocative, to make sure that everyone that looks at her sees every shape and every curve in her body. She said, at least I'm not causing people to think about me like you do and cause them to sin. Unlike her original plans, this high society woman that tried to embarrass the tzadikah was silenced in an instant, and everyone else was quiet. She had the trait where she wanted to influence the righteous woman to be like her. And many people do that. And in fact, in the world today, the Satan has many tools to do that. A poor little girl wanted to write different things about her life. So her mother in Texas, nice woman, very righteous and Yirat Shamayim, says, okay, I'll get you something on the, whether it's a phone or a tablet she has. And the girl's only 11 years old, 12 years old, and she gives only specific learning programs. She gets her this application and she says to her, listen here, this is something you can write your thoughts and ideas. One of these applications. And the mother says to me, I have a very big problem with my daughter. She's only 11 years old, but she's already thinking about getting married, and she wants to, have a boyfriend now, and she wants to kiss everyone. I'm like, what? How could this happen? She's a religious girl. She's asked me questions in the past. She's done everything good. What happened? Just in a matter of a few months? She says, I don't know, but I asked her, and she said, well, that's what my tablet is telling me. I said, what does the tablet say? She says, the tablet, I thought it was just going to write her thoughts. But the tablet also asks her, who did you kiss today? And what are you wearing today? When I heard this, I realized that Amalek could literally enter every aspect of a person's life. And because she was righteous, I explained to this young girl that this is forbidden. I showed her what the Chachamim say about it in Sefer Torah U'Tahara by Rav David Yosef, the Rishon LeZion, where in the beginning he talks about the aspects of Taharat HaMishpacha. And unbeknownst to most people, Taharat HaMishpacha is not just something you should think about once you get married, but rather, it's something that a person needs to know even when they're single. Why? Because in order to be tahor, it's not just about going to the mikveh, it's also about understanding what tahara is. And Rav David Yosef says, when it comes to morality, our poskim, our halachic authorities said in the Gemara Masechet Psachim, page 25b, you shall allow yourself to be killed rather than transgress it. Meaning that even touching a woman, whether she's your wife or not, when she's nida, in an affectionate manner, whether it's kissing, holding hands, is forbidden according to the Torah. Even casual touching is prohibited according to the rabbinical authorities. And it makes no difference whether the nida is the man's wife or whether she's unmarried. If a man has relations with an unmarried woman who's nida, he is punished with karet, just the same. And the Torah prohibition against touching her in an affectionate manner also applies to an unmarried woman. Since every unmarried woman is presumed to be nida, because they don't go to the mikveh and not allowed to go to the mikveh until they get married, one is prohibited to touch her or even gaze upon her. And our sages were effusive regarding the severity of the prohibition of not gazing at women. And he goes extensively in regards to also telling people to warn others that go to weddings and all types of gatherings where there's boys and girls or men and women dancing together. And let them know this is a serious violation of the Torah to such an extent that the same judgment applies to it, that it's better off to die than to have a mixed dancing party or be part of it. When this little tzadikah girl heard this, the poor little kid started crying because I didn't know. I thought that this is what you're supposed to do. And Baruch Hashem, she fixed it. When I told this to my daughter, may Hashem bless her, give her refuah shlema, atzlacha rabba, and long, long life with a lot of success in Torah. She told me, Abba, yes, This type of stuff is everywhere. Do you want me to talk to this girl? You want me to help you? I told her I'm planning on telling her what it says in the book. Do you think it's a good idea? Or she's too young to hear. She goes, no, Abba, she needs to know it. You know, and my daughter is even younger than her. She goes, no, she needs to know, Abba. I think if she had tzadikah, she's going to like it. And she was right, God bless her. What can we do in a world where there is influence and influencers coming from all directions, trying to get you away from Hashem? Now, of course, you could say, well, you could be like that woman in the story of Rabbi Efraim, where she told the other woman that she's a machtia rabim, she causes others to sin. But unfortunately, the majority of people, whether they are religious or not religious, don't realize this. Don't realize that their brother or sister or cousin that dresses immodestly, that does things, talks against Hashem, is causing the public to sin. They don't think that way. They think it's just his opinion or just her style. And the Rambam paskins in Ilchot Deot that the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created people is that they will be influenced by others. They'll be influenced by their surroundings. So much so that people can become scared of someone just by hearing of who he is. There was just a story that was publicized in Israel where this guy came to a hotel and told him that he's part of this mafia criminal family and he is taking over the penthouse floor of the hotel. And if they say anything, he's going to burn the whole place up. The poor hotel owners couldn't do anything about it. They were afraid of him, and they knew that the mafia does that. And this guy lived in a hotel for 6 months. Eventually, somebody from the hotel went to the family and asked them, maybe you could get your guy to pay us or leave or something. Like, who are you talking about? This guy that's there, he goes, he's not part of us. We don't even know who he is. And they realized the whole thing was a scam. The whole thing was a scam, and they threw him out, obviously. But the fear from this possible life danger, or at least financial danger, wasn't because he showed a gun or a knife, or no, simply he mentioned a word. He's part of a criminal family. The Gemara says in Masechet Yevamot that being a dayan is not like other jobs, where you go to your job, if you do good, good for you. You don't do good, no big deal. The Gemara in Masechet Yevamot, page 109b, says in the name of Rav Shmuel Bar Nachmani, who said it in the name of Rabbi Yonatan, a judge should always view himself as though a sword is resting between his thighs and Gehenom is open beneath him. As Shlomo HaMelech says in the Song of Songs, chapter 3, verses 7 and 8, behold, the couch of Shlomo, meaning the Bet HaMikdash, 60 mighty men, meaning the judges, are around it of the mighty men of Israel. All of them are gripping swords, skilled in battle, meaning halachic debate between them, each with his sword on his thigh for fear of nights. What does it mean, fear of nights? Fear of Gehenom, which is similar to night. Why should a dayan be afraid of Gehenom? I mean, isn't he the most righteous? Isn't he the most knowledgeable? Isn't he the one that learns Torah the most? Yes. But because of that, he's been put in a position of judging. And a judge who's unwilling to confer to those that are greater than him and ensure that he ruled correctly lacks the level of fear of heaven necessary. And ultimately he will issue incorrect rulings for which he will be punished in Gehenom for. Furthermore, if he is a judge that does not have enough Yirat Shamayim, he's also going to fail in this mitzvah that we learned from Sefer Dvarim. That you're not allowed to be afraid of anyone. Why not? Says the Chizkuni on this verse, when Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us, don't display fear of anyone, he's saying that if a judge is afraid that the party who he convicted will hate him as a result of his ruling against them, the Torah is reminding him that ultimately the judgment is God's, and he had only carried out God's will. So there's no reason for him to be afraid. A dayan is forbidden from being afraid of those that he's ruling for. We're not talking about if the guy threatens his life. We're talking about something much simpler, where he knows that if he rules against this person, the guy is going to hate him. But he's not going to change the Torah. So what does he do? He says, listen, I don't have anything against you. It's just that the Torah says, and someone already ruled on it in previous cases, that this is the halakha. Like in essence, he's blaming the Torah for the ruling in order for the guy to not hate him. If you have a problem, you have a problem with the Torah. This, the Chizkuni is saying, is forbidden. Why? Because unlike the vast majority of all of the mitzvot in the Torah, where there's no explanation of why Hashem gave the Torah, gave the mitzvot, other than that's his will, that's the will of Hashem, that's the command of the king. Here Hashem specified. Here Hashem said, you shall not be afraid of anyone. Why? Because you have to understand that judgment is in the hands of Hashem. You're simply doing the will of Hashem. And there's no reason to ever be afraid if you're doing the will of Hashem. There's only reason to be afraid if you're not doing the will of Hashem. By either manipulating the law to your likings, disobeying, disregarding, or you're afraid to issue the law with confidence that this is the will of God, because you don't want people to not like you. Right? Rabbi Shmuel of Salant once sat in a bed din, and they ruled against one of the people. He lost the case, and the guy that lost the case lost his temper. How could you rule against me? You guys don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to break this whole place. Smash all the windows. Rabbi Shmuel of Salant says to him, and you know what I'm going to do? The guy was shocked. He didn't expect the rabbi to respond that way. What? What are you going to do, Rabbi? And Rabbi Shmuel of Salant says to him, I'm going to get someone to fix it. Meaning, I don't care about all of your threats. I'm doing the will of God. I'm issuing you a ruling in according to what the halakha is. You want to break, you want to yell, go ahead. That's not going to change the law. That's not going to change the truth. Dayanim that do not have enough Yirat Shamayim will sometimes be influenced by the public's perspective. But this is not necessarily the problem that affects you and I. The problem that affects you and I is that this is not only applicable to Dayanim, this is also applicable to each and every single Jew that is afraid to fulfill the words of the Torah, whether it's to rebuke someone, or to publicize the Torah, or to do chesed, because they're afraid of what people are going to say. She's afraid to be modest because she's afraid of how people are going to look at her. He's afraid to tell people to do tshuva because he's afraid of what they're going to say about him. Someone asked me today, am I allowed to go to a mixed gym where there's men and women working out there? I said, absolutely not. He says, so does it make sense to tell my secular friend that I can't go because of modesty, even though he's not going to care and he's going to make fun of me and not like the Torah? Now, he perhaps thought that maybe it doesn't make sense. Not really because it doesn't make sense. Because he doesn't want to have this discussion with his friend and tell him, listen, I can't go because it's not modest to go to a gym that has men and women working out there. But that's also telling his friend that his friend really can't go either, and he's sinning by doing that. So he doesn't want to have that discussion. But the truth is, if you have Yirat Shamayim, it's not even a question. Of course you must tell him. It's not only me that I can't go. You can't go. You choose to go. That's your problem. But I have an obligation to tell you that you cannot go. You are damaging your soul by going to such places and by doing things that are against the Torah. People spend an enormous amount of energy, mental energy, emotional energy, physical energy, trying to please everyone else that they're scared of, displeasing. But when it really comes down to it, a person that has this mitzvah under their belt, where they're fulfilling this mitzvah, they know it's not just that I have to have emunah in Hashem to help me with money, or to give me kids, or to find me a house, or to get me a job. I have to have emunah and bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that as long as I am fulfilling His Torah, He will protect me. He will bring me salvation. That everything that's happening in my life is good. Even if it sometimes doesn't look good. Even if it hurts sometimes. But if I'm doing the will of Hashem, I'm always going in the right direction. So much so that a person that lives with this midah of emet, this character trait of living the truth becomes unstoppable. As the prophet Jeremiah, in chapter 20, verse number 9, says, Yet if I would say, I will not mention him, meaning Hashem, and not speak in his name anymore. Meaning Jeremiah says, I thought, I don't want to say this prophecy. Why? Because the prophecies of Jeremiah were horrific. Destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, people dying, horrible, horrible thing. And Jeremiah says, I honestly didn't want to say this prophecy. I didn't want to bring bad news. His word would be like a burning fire in my heart, stored in my bones. And though I might struggle to contain it, I could not. Meaning Jeremiah is saying, even when I didn't want to say the horrible news that are coming, I didn't want to say the horrible news that are coming. I didn't want to be the one that scared everyone and told them the inevitable, horrific things that will happen to them. But what can I do? This is the words of Hashem. This is the one and only truth. And it was burning in my heart, and as much as I would like to contain it, I could not. I had to say the prophecy. A person that wants to live in accordance to the will of Hashem, in accordance to the Torah, has to elevate themselves to the point where the truth is simply not something they could withhold from anybody else. The Shulchan Aruch is the truth of Hashem. The Gemara is the truth of Hashem. The teachings of our sages, whether it be Musar or any aspect of the Torah, is the truth of Hashem. The words of Hashem are unstoppable. And if they're not, if you're afraid to say them, you have not been able to fulfill this ultimate mitzvah. Because a person that believes that the Torah is the truth, 100% is not going to be able to contain and stop himself from saying the truth when it must be said. Because one that has real yirat shamayim, real fear of heaven, can't hold the truth back. He can't hold it from coming out. But even someone that didn't live a frum life from birth, but still has that holy Jewish spark within them, can be elevated to the ultimate truth in a moment. In a sefer called Bekrovai Kadesh, the author writes all types of testimonial stories, stories that he saw, stories that he got from Holocaust survivors. In one of the stories, he tells that the Nazis, Yimach Shimam V'Zichram, aside from torturing the Jews, enslaving them, making them work endless hours with no food or water or anything, their main goal was to break the Jews, break their morale, just like the Egyptians, where they give the men's job to the women's jobs to the men. And one of the things that the Nazis, Yimach Shimam, would do is after a long, arduous day full of horrific pain and agony, they'd gather up the Jews, and the Nazis, Yimach Shimam, would tell them, "Who is the worst of all the nations?" And the Jews would have to say, "We are." "Who is the most promiscuous, the most immodest of all the nations?" And the Jews would have to say, "We are." "Who are the biggest prostitutes?" And the Jews would have to say, "We are." Because whoever did not, the Nazis would force all of the other Jews to beat them up. And if they didn't beat them up, they'd kill everybody. In one of these times, this Jewish doctor, or was a Jewish doctor, told a fellow Jew, "I'm not going to let these Nazis destroy and degrade us. Now, even though this Jewish doctor didn't exactly grow up religious and didn't live a religious life, to say the least, here he had some type of holy spark within him that could not allow the holy Jewish women and men to be disgraced. And his friend said to him, "What do you mean?" He says, "Wait till you see what I do today." After the Nazis gathered them and went through the words and said, "Who is the most immodest, immoral people of all?" And the Jewish doctor said, "You are. You, the Nazis, are." Silence. The Nazi says to him, "What'd you say?" And without hesitating for even a second, this holy Jewish doctor's Jewish neshama came out and said to him, "You heard what I said. You are the most immodest. We, the Jewish people, are the holiest. Our women are the most modest, are the most conservative, are the most reserved of all the people. And all of the things you make us say, they're all lies. Because the truth is, your nation is the evil one that's full of immodesty and immorality and prostitution and filth. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take his revenge against you and punish you." Of course, the Nazi ended up killing this Jewish man that died on Kiddush Hashem, because here he literally died for being a Jew, even though he didn't live as a Jew before the Holocaust. But we see from these types of stories that all of this is within each and every Jew, regardless of how they grew up. The question is if you're going to let that emet that's within you come out, or stay hidden inside you. When a person lives with the truth, the emet burns within them. And they simply cannot allow the truth to be forgotten, the truth to be ignored, the truth to be disgraced. In Yerushalayim, in the previous generation, the time of Rav Chaim Sonnenfeld, alav shalom, there was a wicked Jew who was very wealthy and connected to the government, who lived a very free life, and so did his wife. And it was found out that his wife committed adultery with another man. After Rav Chaim Sonnenfeld and the other Dayanim did an investigation, they ruled she's an adulterer and she's forbidden to stay with with her husband. But the husband, the wicked husband that she had, didn't want this. He didn't care. So he went to the non-Jews that were leading the country at the time and told them, "These rabbis, they hate me because I'm more modern, I'm more up with the times, I'm friends with you, and they're trying to disgrace me by saying that my wife was an adulterer. Okay, so what do you want us to do? I want you to issue a ruling that they're not allowed to issue this ruling from their Beit Din, and if they do, for each violation they have to pay 50 zuz, 50 gold coins, or get whipped 50 times." The government gave him the ruling. He came to the synagogue with this ruling in his hand. "You're not allowed to issue this ruling." After Rav Chaim Sonnenfeld saw this, he went home and returned with a small bag with the ruling in his hand and the other two Dayanim next to him. Got everybody together, and this wicked Jew is waiting to see what's going to happen. And Rav Chaim Sonnenfeld shows them the din. He says, this woman is a zonah, and she's forbidden to her husband. Here's 50 gold coins. This woman is an adulterer, and she's forbidden to her husband. Here's another 50. This woman is an adulterer, and she's forbidden to her husband. Here's another 50. And this is all the money that I could gather. If I had more, I'd say it even more times. The next Dayan came up and said, this woman is a zonah. I don't have 50 coins, but I can handle 50 whips. That's all my body can handle. And the third Dayan came and did the same exact thing. This woman is an adulterer and she's forbidden to her husband. I don't have the money, but I can handle 50 whips. And all three of these Dayanim said later on in their life, for standing for the truth in this way, we were all blessed. One became the Rav of Yerushalayim, lived extraordinarily long and fruitful lives. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not forget any of his righteous people. Now, of course, saying the truth doesn't mean hurting people. There are times that it's better to be silent. A responsa by the Rashba says that there are times where you have to stay silent, meaning it's a mitzvah to stay silent. Either because there's some type of danger or it's useless for specific issues. So don't think for a moment that you could just call yourself brutally honest and just say the truth about everyone. You're fat and you're ugly and you're this and you're that. And no. A person has to know how to not only say the truth, but live the truth. And if they really want it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu present them opportunities. But if you're just looking to hurt people, don't think that you're fulfilling this mitzvah. The goal is to help people. Help people do tshuva. Help people know what the truth is in order for them to make an educated decision. The goal is to help. Bring light to the world. Not to offend people. Not to disgrace people. The only decent prime minister Israel has had since its founding, the modern state, was Prime Minister Menachem Begin, who was close to the Torah, his Jewish life, and talked about Shabbat even at multiple occasions. And he had a certain aspect of truth without sugarcoating, without being afraid to say the truth. And one of the examples was a story that came out where the German chancellor met with him, obviously many other people in the room, and the German chancellor said to Menachem Begin, why continue fighting with the Palestinians? Just divide Israel into two, give them half, and you have half. To this, Menachem Begin did not hold anything back. And he said, look who here is recommending for me to endanger my own people. The very leader of the nation that's responsible for murdering 33% of my people is now recommending for me to endanger my people against another enemy. Aren't you ashamed of all the blood that's on your hands to say such things? And he continued his politically incorrect truth, which of course was not exactly welcomed even by some people that were in the Israeli government from the lefty liberal side. And for this, Menachem Begin said, for all of those liberal lefties in the Israeli government that didn't like the words that I said to the German chancellor and turned their noses, like didn't like it. Says, I don't care. Let them have crooked noses. Rav Yosef ben Porat was recently invited to be one of the speakers in the army. They invited a Dati Leumi rabbi or other types of speakers, and they invited the Orthodox Jewish rabbi in order to show as if they have no preference and are giving people freedom to choose, which is complete bogus. But nonetheless, Rav Yosef ben Porat has a very long and deep history connected to very, very powerful people, even before many of these government members were even born. And he came over there, and as he's speaking to the soldiers, one heretic in the crowd yelled out, stop babbling all this Torah stuff, tell all the religious people to join the army, and stop running away from it. To that, everyone was silent, because they expected the typical response that unfortunately many religious people have. No, but you know that some religious people are drafting themselves, are joining the army, and they're doing a lot of good. And this was not the response Rav Yosef ben Porat had. Inside the Israeli army, in front of everyone, Rav Yosef ben Porat says to him, who asked you to build an army here? Don't you realize we have been here much longer than you? The Ramban came to Israel 800 years ago with all of his students. And we, the religious Jews, have been here all along. You only came here recently. We didn't ask you to make a government, make an army, defend us. We didn't ask you to do any of that. If you don't like the way we live, leave. Leave the country. No one's asking you. We don't need you. This was in the army. And not exactly the response anyone could imagine. But that truth, that fire, could not be contained. And it worked. And it worked. When one of the members of the government came to the Chazon Ish to try to warn him about living in Bnei Brak, at the time it was the Arabs would walk at night and kidnap people and do a lot of horrible things. And he was trying to convince the Chazon Ish to, in essence, join the secular Zionists by trying to scare him from the Arabs. And to that, the Chazon Ish says, I'm much more scared of your desecration of Shabbat than I am of the Arabs that are murdering people in the streets. Because so long as you continue to desecrate Shabbat, the Arabs could be given the permission to be the stick that hits the Jewish people. But if you didn't violate Shabbat, no nation on planet Earth could ever hurt us. Rabotai Yekarim, it's of critical importance for a person to follow every aspect of the Torah, and not just the mitzvot that are comfortable. Of course, no one wants to tell other people things that may cause a conflict, a difference of opinion. But the truth is, if you have a real relationship with somebody, and it's not just someone that you see occasionally and say hello from afar, certainly you have difference of opinion. You have a difference of opinion about the economy. You have a difference of opinion about the stock market, the real estate market, how to do business, where to live, who to marry, how many kids you should have. And yet people have no problem whatsoever having those disagreements. But when it comes to the truth of the Torah, and you know that your fellow Jew is not dressing modest, your fellow Jew is not learning enough Torah, your fellow Jew is not observing the mitzvot, either at all or properly, for whatever reason, there, a person does not want to express their conflict of opinion. There, a person all of a sudden doesn't want to tell his friend that he disagrees. He's more than happy to volunteer his information, his opinion about the real estate market or politics or where the guy should invest. He doesn't think it's too personal to ask the person of whether he's renting or he's buying or how much money he makes. But he thinks that if telling his friend that he should stop driving on Shabbat, or that she should stop being so immodest in her behavior or her clothing, they feel like that's maybe too personal. Reality is it's the opposite. Sharing your opinion about what other people should do with their money, or where they should live, and how much they have, that's something you have no business talking about unless you're invited. But telling your friend, your brother or your sister, spiritually, biologically, or both, that they're endangering their eternal soul, they're endangering their children's lives in this world and the next with their behavior, is not a matter of sharing your opinion. It's actually showing them you love them because you're warning them of the clear danger that they're putting themselves into. And if you choose not to, know that it's not because of your friend that you're not sharing the truth. It's because of you not believing the truth enough to the point where it's a fire within you you cannot contain. BeEzrat HaShem, each and every one of us will find a way to learn more and to do more of what the Torah says, to create a bigger and bigger fire within that will ultimately turn into a desire to help our brothers and sisters from the religious community and the not so religious, to at the very least know what the truth is. Sometimes the best thing to do is to share it over coffee. Sometimes an even better way is to send them a lecture, a video. Send them this video, or any of the other videos we have on our channels, in Hebrew, in Spanish, in English, in Portuguese, in Russian, and other languages. Sometimes giving them a USB, sometimes it's giving them a book that we have. The point is, each and every Jew has to know they have to do something in order to help Klal Yisrael know that the truth is still alive and well, even if they've ignored it their whole life. And the more we live the truth, the easier it will become to share. And BeEzrat HaShem, we all succeed. With that being said, you guys can start asking some questions, and BeEzrat HaShem, Kadosh Baruch Hu will give us the answers. Dear Rabbi, I was having lunch with my Jewish. Part of your answer is missing. Not seeing some of the words. Something at work colleague, and my colleague asked me why we don't eat meat during this time. And I mentioned it's forbidden for Jews to have meat now. And my boss got triggered and said I shouldn't use the word forbidden at workplace in a religious context. It bothers me that he said this. Who is in the wrong? If your friend at work asked you, there's no problem of you answering the question that he asked. Now, if you simply go out there at work and you spend your time at work instead of working, you're trying to tell people that they should do tshuva, that's not what the boss is paying you for. He's paying you to work. But if it's just not a problem for people to share their opinions about music, about money, about their personal lives, in every other aspect, then there should not be a problem of you sharing your beliefs for someone that's interested. So your boss seems to be in the wrong here, not you. But again, that's so long as everyone is allowed to talk freely about every other subject. If they're allowed to talk about every other subject, then he's not allowed to restrict you about this particular subject. But if no one's allowed to talk, it's one of these companies where you're not allowed to share anything personal or talk at all. Everybody has to simply focus on the machines until they're replaced by machines. Then in that case, you should either not talk or find a different job. Dear Rabbi, I have an interesting question. Imagine an individual comes by and asks me a question regarding the authenticity about the book of Job. What's the question? Book of Job is through prophecy. It's part of the Tanakh, part of the 24 books of the Tanakh. If you believe in a Tanakh, then certainly you believe that the book of Job is authentic. Should a person work at a yeshiva where the rabbi there is not so much of your fan? I don't care whether a person is my fan or not. The question is whether they are a person that has Yirat Shamayim, that is following the Torah and is not one of these heretics. If the leader and the rabbis over there are heretics, whether they are fans of mine or not is irrelevant. You're not allowed to work in such a place. But if they are people that have Yirat Shamayim, then it's not a problem. Whether they like me or not is irrelevant. If there's no third temple, why don't they build a temporary tent? If they did, would they be able to do animal sacrifices? No. Once the first Bet HaMikdash was built, it was forbidden for any Jew to bring a sacrifice anywhere else outside of the Bet HaMikdash. So when the first Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, we were no longer able to bring sacrifices until the second Bet HaMikdash. After the second Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, we're no longer able to bring any sacrifices until the third Bet HaMikdash is built. And we're not allowed to build it on our own or even a tent or anything else. It's strictly something that the Mashiach will do through the command of Hashem. How can one address a teenager regarding use of video games? Well, it depends what kind of education the kid is getting. If the kid is getting a Torah education, then they should know that video games are not only a big waste of time, but they're usually full of immodesty, immorality, killing, viciousness. They're not going to teach you much good, especially if you're talking about this first-person shooter games and or sports games or other types of games. So it's not going to help a person in their life to become a better shooter or a better person playing football games. It's not going to help them in their life. So it's a big waste of time, and it also could corrupt their character. Now, if the person is not getting a Torah education, then again, you could still mention the fact that it's not going to be very useful in their life to do any of this stuff, but it's going to be very, very hard to convince the kid that has not learned morality of the Torah, and therefore just is comparing everything based on their own common sense and what they see out there. They see their friends playing video games. They see their even celebrities playing video games. So their role models are people that are playing video games. So to convince a kid to go against their role models is going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible. So it's the first thing is that a person needs to make sure that your children have tzaddikim as the role models. That's why I always recommend for people to get books of the stories, the life stories of different tzaddikim, and always read a new one on a regular basis. Once you finish one, you should already have the next one ready. And after another one, another one. There's no end. Baruch Hashem, Am Yisrael has many tzaddikim, and the cost of printing and the ability to print and technology has become so easy that it's literally very, very easy to get new books, and there's no end to the stories. So if you want your kids to act like tzaddikim, they first have to admire them. And to do that, you have to read the books. But if your kid is not getting that type of education, then why should they want to be a tzaddik? Why should they want to be reserved? Their role models are people that they see on TV and on YouTube, and they may look up to to celebrities. So for you to tell them to do the opposite of what their superhero is doing won't make sense to them. Rabbi, in the case of a family that's in the conversion process and the kids are 11 and 12 years old and can't go to Orthodox school, the kid should not roll in a secular school or wait until they proceed. It depends what schools you have available to you. If you have the typical school that's available here in America, it's a public school, then whether you are or you're not going to convert, you should not send them to that, because the typical school here in America today is teaching LGBTQ, is teaching that you should have two fathers and two mothers, is teaching immorality even in school. There's no end to the horrible things that are happening that I don't even want to mention in these schools. So why would anybody send their kids to those schools? Either they're ignorant of reality or they simply don't care about their kids. So if that's the choices you have, which is the majority of choices, and I even have students that are teachers, so I'm not just creating this information. And of course, you see what's happening in the world. If that's the choices you have, then of course it's better off not to send them to those schools and do homeschooling. And homeschooling has become something that's much more common today. There's a lot of programs out there that you could sign up to, and the kid could learn at home. And it's not easy. I can tell you from experience, it's not easy to get the kids to be on the same type of structure where they wake up a certain time and they do schoolwork for a certain amount of time, and they're always focused. It's certainly not easy to do homeschooling, but it's much easier to do homeschooling with all of the problems that homeschooling has than to deal with the kid that now is a father at 12 years old because that's what he learned in school that he should do. Or a girl that now wants to marry another woman because that's what she learned in school that she wants to do. Or she married the teacher, or all the other horrible drugs that are there. So you have to pick which difficulty you want. I mean, I think it makes common sense that today the public schooling system in America is bottom of the barrel. Bottom of the barrel. And this is not just me saying it, this is anybody that's been paying attention in the world saying it. In this country and outside of this country. So you see what's happening. So of course, you should not send it to them. Now, of course, you can't send your kids to an Orthodox school, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't get an education. You should do homeschooling and deal with that particular difficulty because that difficulty is still easier than the horrible other option that's available out there. Is it permissible to sell mobile in a country where the majority of people will use it for non-kosher purposes like idolatry? If the product that you're selling is legal, you're not stealing it, then you have no responsibility of what people are going to do with it, whether it's a computer or a phone or a washing machine or a car or a hammer. People can use everything for good and for bad. If the product in itself is not inherently bad. A computer, whether it's a computer that's a phone or a computer that's a desktop or a laptop, is not inherently bad. It gives you access to information. Same thing with social media. Social media is not something that you could only do bad things. Obviously, we are publicizing Torah in all four corners of the world through social media. Now, of course, the majority of people choose to use social media for bad, or computers for bad, or phones for bad. But that's their choice. People tell me all the time, listen, how could you have an account on Facebook or on TikTok? There's so much immorality there. There's so much immodesty there. I have no idea. Listen, I don't go looking. I always tell even my own team, when you're posting the lectures, when you're posting the posters, all the things that we do kiruv with, you go to Facebook, you post it, you leave. You don't start surfing and socializing and discussing. You go, you post, you leave. You go, you post, you leave. You go, you post, you leave, like a sniper. So a person that's not looking for trouble is not going to find trouble. So if you're selling a phone or laptop or any other type of device that is not inherently bad, it's a device that is going to help somebody work, it's a device that's going to help somebody communicate and so on, there's no problem selling that device and making a living from it, even if the majority or all of the people end up doing bad things with it. It's not your responsibility, because if that was the case, we would not be allowed to do any commerce, because everything can be used for bad. A hammer can be used to build, or a hammer can be used to kill or destroy. A knife can be used to cut your food, or a knife can be or slaughter food, or a knife can be used to kill. So everything can be used for bad. It's not your responsibility of what people are going to use it for if the product itself is not inherently, has a, only one use. If it only has, like, for example, poison. Selling poison or selling idolatry is never allowed. Why? Because there's one use for it. Poison specifically to, let's say, kill people. You can't use that. Why? Because that's to kill people. You're not allowed to kill people. Or same thing with idols. You're not allowed to sell idols. Unfortunately, a lot of people in the jewelry business make the mistake where they sell these crosses and these all types of statues and so on, because they have customers that are looking for it and want to pay a lot of money for it. It's a mistake. You're never going to see bracha from benefiting from idolatry in any way. Even if you think that your business is making $1 million a year from the statues that you sell and the crosses that you sell, you'll see that all of the money you make from there will end up being spent on things you don't want, whether it's the IRS or it's doctor bills or lawsuits or all types of horrible things. There's never going to be any bracha, even in the places where you would say it's allowed but not recommended. So, but generally speaking, if the product is something that can be used for good, there's no problem of selling it. I have a question. Send a question. I have a bunch of questions. I have questions from Facebook. I have questions from TikTok. I have questions from WhatsApp. I have questions from, I don't know, a bunch of different places. So just send. What's the question? Do I believe in the Islamic Mahdi? Is that a serious? That's what you're asking a Jewish rabbi that's teaching the truth? You want me to? You're asking me if I believe the lies and manipulations of Islam? Like this is the question you ask? I don't understand you. Why don't you go ask your imam? Why don't you go ask Osama bin Laden? Why don't you ask, I don't know, all of the people in your world if they believe it? Why do you need me to believe it? You realize it doesn't make any sense. Why am I disrespecting Islam? Because your Quran says that one of the ultimate goals of Islam is to murder the Jews. As it says, your prophet, your fake prophet Muhammad says that at the end of days, even the rock and the tree is going to tell, oh Muslim, here's the Jew, he's hiding behind me, come and kill him. So your book is the ultimate enemy of the Jewish people. Muhammad murdered countless Jews. So why would I not be against it? You want sources? I have entire lectures about it. Go to my YouTube channel, Rabbi Yaron Reuven, type the word Islam, and you'll see a bunch of lectures there where I give you sources from your books. Not just my books, from your books of what it says. And you'll see that the Quran is not just bad for the Jews. The Quran is bad for the Muslims. But most people don't read. They trust what the imam says, what some guy says to them. And unfortunately, they live a lie. Does Judaism believe in eternal Gehenom, means Gehenom for infinite duration? I have an entire film about Gehenom that will answer all of your possible questions about Gehenom, and it also provides sources. To be precise, 172 sources are mentioned in the film. Now, there are thousands upon thousands of sources that discuss Gehenom. But if we include all the sources, then literally the time wouldn't end, and we'd still be doing the movie. But you have the film called Gehenom. You go to my channel, you type the word Gehenom, Gehinnom, and you'll see there's a film, Gehenom the film, and over there you'll see what the Torah says about Gehenom, how long it is, what are the different possibilities, the chambers, who goes there, who doesn't go there, what does Chassidut say about Gehenom, what does the Shulchan Aruch says about Gehenom, what do the Gemara says about Gehenom, the Zohar Kadosh says about Gehenom. You'll see all the different things from all aspects of the Torah, and you'll have your answers. Can you go over your transition to the ways of the Torah? There's a whole film about it called Hashem Took Back His Millions. Go to Hashem, watch the film, Hashem Took Back His Millions. That's the personal story. And then after that, watch my lectures from time to time. I add more parts to it. Go to Hashem Took Back His Millions. I want to maintain a healthy, loving, and close relationship with my parents, siblings, and other family that I live with. How do I balance my observance with their non-observant secularism? Simple. So long as they do not mock the Torah or try to entice you to live the same type of life that they live, there's no problem in maintaining an amicable, decent relationship with all of them. But if they're mocking the Torah, if they're trying to convince you to be like them, then you have to spend as little time as possible with them and quite frankly live as far away from them as possible. So it all depends on what kind of family you have. And also depends on how easily you're influenced and how strong you are. But it's not something that's one size fits all. Some people have a family that's a decent family, even though they're not observing of the Torah. They still respect religious people. They respect you have discipline. They respect you have morals, and they're not against it at all. They're actually very fond of it. They just choose not to do it because they're ignorant of it. But then there are some people that literally are haters of the Torah. I have a few students like that have to deal with this war inside their own house. I have one particular student that literally, his family tried to do everything possible to get him to stop being religious, to the point where they tried to convince his wife to divorce him and almost convinced her to divorce him. And literally, only through the mercy of Hashem did Hashem save that marriage. And Baruch Hashem, not only that, Hashem also killed the top perpetrator of the Amalek that was within his family, that was spearheading this whole internal war. Literally killed him. Like the main person that was behind it died instantly and surprisingly to everyone, and left all of his material belongings that he was so addicted to in this world. Sorry, my question I left partial was asking about the authority of the book of Job. Why the Jewish tradition has no record of Job. I don't really understand why you're saying that the Jewish tradition does not have record of Job. You have an entire book of Job. And the Midrash talks about Job, and the Gemara talks about Job, and the Zohar Kadosh talks about Job, and the Ramban talks about Job. Just because you don't know something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. People have to swallow their pride and stop pretending they know more than they do. Just because you don't know something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The Torah talks about a lot of things. To say something doesn't exist simply means you think that you have covered the entire endless Torah and you couldn't find. And the Gemara in Masechet Megillah says, if you looked and you didn't find in the Torah, I don't believe you. Why? Because it's in there. You just didn't look. You didn't look. So don't say something is not in the Torah. It is, you just don't know about it. And the Gemara mentions them in Masechet Avodah Zarah, in Masechet Brachot, in Masechet Sanhedrin. Job is mentioned many times. He's mentioned how many kids he had. It mentions that who his friends were, what their names were, the different hats they had supernatural abilities. There's, Baruch Hashem, plenty of things that are mentioned about Job. Why did he even get this punishment or this test? It's all because he was one of the Sarim, one of the main ministers of Paro, and because he did not speak in favor of the Jewish people, he stayed silent. Then Hashem gave him this test. The point is, there's a lot of information about Job. To say that we don't know about Job is just simply wrong. Now, as far as to say, we don't know everything there is to know about Job. We don't know everything there is to know about anything. You don't even know everything there is to know about yourself. You don't know everything there is to know about your parents, and you live with them, or you've lived with them. So it's important for a person to put things in perspective and understand that the Torah is not a storybook. The Torah gives us information that is relevant to us, that is something we can learn from, that is something we can apply to our lives from. And therefore the Torah brings every single aspect, whether it's the stories or the laws or the intricate details of who, what, when, and how. All of those things are things we have to learn from. And a person that learns Torah, the more they learn Torah, the more they realize every letter of a Torah, every little crown even of a Torah is something you can learn from. That's why Rabbi Akiva was teaching his students from the crowns on top of each letter. So it's important to understand things from the right perspective and not say these statements, and I hear them unfortunately way too often from decent people. I'm not telling you this as if this is the first time I heard somebody make a statement like, I can't find it. Literally, almost every single day somebody tells me, how come this doesn't exist in the Torah? Did you review the entire Torah? Did you even finish the entire Shas? No, I completed one Masechet. So how could you know this is in the Torah or not? Just because you didn't find it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's important to not say things like that because this is a subconscious Amalek that will create a safek within you to think that the Torah is incomplete. And a person that thinks that the Torah is incomplete will thereby start devaluing the Torah. Now, as far as every single detail of Job's life, what he did in the morning, what he did in the afternoon, what his hobbies were, what he ate for breakfast, no, we don't know all of those details because they're not necessary for us to know. But whatever we do know about him is discussed in the Zohar, in the Gemara, by different Chachamim throughout all of the generations, and there's plenty of information there. There is even two different opinions about the book of Job. There's one opinion that the book of Job was at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, and when Moshe Rabbeinu sent the spies, or allowed the spies to go to Eretz Yisrael, he told them, to see if there's a tree there, and if there's a tree, learn from it. How could you learn from a tree? This is a verse in the Torah. And Rashi says the tree is Job. Moshe Rabbeinu knew about Job that was very righteous, and he told the spies that if Job is alive, go to him. And also it tells us that it's not the time to go to Eretz Yisrael right now because Job will give merit to all of the Gentiles, and we can't go to war against Job. So the point is that Rashi over there says that Job was alive at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, and he actually died when the spies arrived in Eretz Yisrael, or at the time called Canaan. Now, as far as the other opinion is that Job was actually a story that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote in order to teach Am Yisrael Torah. The vast majority of Chachamim believe the first one, which is that Job was alive. Job was one of the ministers of Paro. Job was a righteous person. He was one of the righteous prophets of the nations. But nonetheless, there is a lot of information about Job. Lots and lots of information about Job. You just have to look further and you'll find much, much more things. In fact, the introduction to the commentary of the Ramban on the book of Job teaches us about Gehenom, where he says that all of the suffering that Job had during that 1 year, where he lost all of his sons, all of his money, all of his health, pretty much lived hell on earth, the Ramban says all of that suffering is not equivalent to even a moment in Gehenom, in the real Gehenom. So from there we understand how horrible Gehenom is to a certain aspect of it. Plenty of information, Rabotai. Plenty of information. The Torah is endless. Afochba v'afochba dekulaba. Thank you, Rabbi. I will be as compassionate as possible with my family. Still want to help out with Bitcoin, AI, and Bitcoin robots. More time for Jews to fully study Torah every day. Okay, if you want to donate Bitcoin, you go to our website, BeEzrat and over there is an option to donate with Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. Rabbi, is it kosher to have hobbies such as sports or gym? If you are working out in a gym, if you're a man, you're working out in a gym that's only males because you're trying to take care of your health, that's perfectly fine and even recommended. If you're working out in a gym that's mixed gym, then it's not allowed no matter what, even if it's the only gym in town. Not allowed to work out in a mixed gym. Now, if you are playing a sport for the sake of the exercise, there's no problem playing that sport once a week, twice a week, whatever it is, for the sake of exercise, to take care of your health. There's a mitzvah to take care of your health. But if you're one of these people that's obsessed over the gym and obsessed over the sport, where you're spending hours and hours every day watching it, doing it, and there's barely any time for you to learn Torah, then of course that's not allowed. Why? Because you've turned sports and physical fitness into a new idol. So it's important for a person to have things in the right perspective. Do not turn your physical fitness into some new Greek god. To be physically fit is important. If you're physically fit and you're healthy, it'll be more. It'll be easier for you to study more Torah, to do good things, to do chesed. But if you're spending 2 hours a day playing sports and going to the gym, and you're barely able to listen to 15 minutes of Torah or read Gemara even, then obviously you have to make some changes. Put it this way. At the very least, at the absolute very least, if you're relatively new to the Torah, you should study Torah no less than you exercise and play sports every day. So if you play sports, let's say for an hour or two a day, you should study Torah for at least an hour or two a day. At the very least. In reality, it should be more Torah than even the gym. But at the very least, that's one way to start. You like playing sports? No problem. You like going to a kosher gym? No problem. But make sure, if you give yourself permission to play sports, if you're going to study Torah that much. So first you study Torah for a couple hours, then you can give yourself a permission as a reward, let's say, to go play some sports, for that amount of time. For Gentiles, is free mixing between men and women permitted? If you're talking about going to a mixed gym and dancing together, yes, Gentiles don't have the same laws as far as modesty as the Jews. It's still not recommended, and until recent generations was never done even by the Gentiles. If you look at the old pictures of how even the beaches were in the early 1900s, people would go to the ocean with complete gowns. No one would walk around with a bathing suit. In fact, the first woman that showed herself publicly in a bathing suit that is similar to the ones of today in the early 1900s was arrested. They put her in jail. And she was a non-Jew. They put her in jail here in America. It was completely, even the Gentiles knew that for a woman to walk around that way was inappropriate. Unfortunately, immorality continued to grow, and people started walking around, with less clothes outside than they even do inside. But until this past century, modesty was, as far as clothing is concerned, was a standard across the entire world. It's not, of course, there's always exceptions if they live in a jungle or something, or they're native Indians and different cultures that walk around naked regardless. But I'm talking about civilized first world countries, generally speaking, walked around with completely covered, unlike the people of today. Eating out with family at a non-kosher restaurant. Can I order salad with plastic utensils and have them take all the kosher precautions? No, absolutely not. Not allowed to sit even in a non-kosher restaurant. Okay. We know why Moshe and Yaron and Klal Yisrael did wrong, 4 of them. to die, for them to die and not enter Israel. But why was Miriam not allowed to enter Yisrael? She was also a prophet. She also had certain sins that Hashem punished her for, which was saying Lashon Hara against Moshe Rabbeinu. And she simply did not have the merit of entering Eretz Yisrael. Not because of lack of righteousness, just simply because HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to leave certain tzaddikim outside of Israel in order to make certain things possible for the end of days. Like, for example, the sages, I'm not going to go too deep into this, but the sages said that Moshe Rabbeinu was specifically buried by Hashem across from where the source of impurity of the Baal was. Meaning, Moshe Rabbeinu, next door grave, next door mountain, is where the source of impurity of the Baal, the worst idol worship in history. Why? Why put Moshe? Why can't you get Moshe Rabbeinu a nice burial? Put him in Mount Sinai. Put him in Tveria. Put him in some nice place. Why put him right next to the worst idolatry in history? Because the kedusha of Moshe Rabbeinu submitted the impurity of the Baal and lowered the desire of Am Yisrael against that particular idolatry. They still worshipped idols later on, but it was never the same level as it was from the time of Egypt. In the time of Egypt and before that, people were idol worshippers. Whereas throughout the rest of history, there was always a mix. There was people that were loyal to Hashem, and there was people that were idol worshippers. But the point is that Hashem specifically buried Moshe Rabbeinu where he did in order to have the Kedusha submit the powers of Tumah and help Am Yisrael in different ways than what people can possibly think of. And the same concept goes with Aaron HaKohen, Miriam. Each one was placed in different places, just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu put all the stars in different places. If a person starts learning about the outer space, they realize that the earth is not just in the only place in the whole universe where it could survive, but all of the other planets and moons and everything are also in the only places they could be in order for the earth to survive. So the moon has to be an exact, specific distance from the earth. The sun has to be specific distance from the earth. If they were placed anywhere else, we would not be able to survive. Hashem put all of the stars in specific places, all for the benefit of Am Yisrael. So if the entire universe is structured in such a precise way that everything is there, specifically there, so much so that Hashem knows the name of every star and every hair on your head even, then needless to say, all of the righteous people that Am Yisrael has had, they were put in the same exact place, at the same exact, at a specific place, at a specific generation, at a specific time, for the overall good of Am Yisrael and part of the ultimate plan of Hashem. How did Muhammad know the human body has 360 points? Why don't you guys go to your imams? I don't understand. Why don't you go to Saddam Hussein? Ask him about Muhammad. Why are you asking a Jewish rabbi when you know that this specific Jewish rabbi is only going to give it to you on the head and is not going to answer you in the way that you like? Why? Why do you ask me? Do you like being abused? You like being shown that you're wrong? I don't understand you. I don't understand you guys. You spam all of the different networks, the Facebook, the TikTok, the YouTube. It's like literally, you're like cockroaches. Why do you come here? I'll answer your question, but please, do yourself a favor. Do yourself a favor. If you're here to learn, be quiet and just learn. If you're here to be abused, just go smash your head against the wall a few times. It's probably going to be less painful. I'll answer your question. Muhammad got taught by a Jewish scholar. Some of the things that are in the Quran, he didn't come up out of his own head. He didn't meet with the angel Gabriel like he says. Muhammad was an illiterate. He did not know how to read or write. But he got a Jewish scholar to give him certain information. And that's why initially he was favorable of the Jews. But then when he tried to influence the Jewish scholars to follow him, and the Jewish scholars rejected him, he killed all of them. Now, any truth that's in the Quran was simply plagiarized from the Torah, the written and the oral Torah. Whether it's the number of parts of the body, or it's different mathematics, or it's or laws from the Torah, the story of obviously of Am Yisrael. Even the Quran itself says that if the Muslims don't know what the truth is, go to the Jews, go to the people of the book. So anything that's true in the Quran, you'll find in the Torah. You will never find a single truth in the Quran that does not exist in the Torah. And the Torah preceded the Quran by 2,000 years. We got the Torah 3,300 years ago, more than 3,300 years ago. Now, 3,335 years ago. The Quran only became a thought 1,400 years ago. Before that, the Arabs were idol worshippers. They prayed to statues, they prayed to stones, they prayed to all types of things. They didn't pray to God. So, when the Quran is actually read, you'll actually see that the stories in it are about Moshe Rabbeinu, are about Am Yisrael, are about the Jewish people. That's the initial part. And initially, Muhammad is favorable of the Jews. But when the Jewish scholars rejected him, like I said, he killed them, he raped Jewish women, he did a lot of horrible things to them. And he became, obviously, an anti-Semite that's still causing damage until this day. But any truth that you will find in the Quran, you will find in the Torah, which means that he plagiarized it from the Torah. He did not come up with any original ideas. Now, why do I say any truth in the Quran? Because there's a lot of lies in the Torah. A lot of lies in the Quran. And those lies in the Quran you will never find in the Torah. Because those lies were his creation, was his invention, and the people that followed him. So, if you actually want the truth, you will find it. It's in the Torah. If you want to somehow prove that your lie is the truth, you'll have a very, very difficult time, and you'll end up wasting your whole life and still not succeeding. Oh, no, you don't. If you're really seeking knowledge, then I have no problem with your question. But most of the people, you have to understand, I'm getting endless amount of comments from people that are either cursing me out, cursing the Jews out, mentioning all types of nonsense from the Quran. So I can't decipher the ones that's seeking knowledge versus the people that are fools. If you're actually seeking knowledge, I have lectures about the topic on my channel. As I said to people earlier today, go to my YouTube channel, type Islam on the search box, and you'll see I have several lectures that bring sources, not just from the Torah, but also from the Quran, that show, the different falsehood that's in the Quran, at least some part of it. Anyone that wants to ask a question can ask a question, but I'm only going to answer it if it's a relevant question and not one of these foolish insults or spam messages. Unfortunately, some of you, all you do is just send 500 times the same thing. Kasim wants to ask you a question. Ask the question. Ask. You don't have to ask about asking. Just ask. And don't be like the fool before you that says, Rabbi Reuven, why are you killing babies? This is the type of foolishness that people have in their head. You're asking a person that sacrifices his life to help people, include save babies, why he's killing babies. It's a level of stupidity that deserves an award. You literally deserve a medallion for your stupidity. Why do the Jews think it's acceptable to claim Israel with force when it goes against the Talmud? Now, you have to understand that the land of Israel was given to us by God. There is no claiming it. It's ours. God gave it to us because it's His. It's not anybody else's. It's not owned by the Zionists. It's not owned by the Arabs. It's not owned by anyone other than God. And God says in the Torah that He gave us the land. So there is no such thing as claiming it. He gave it to us, the end. Now, as far as having the right to exist without being under constant threat of annihilation, if that's what you're referring to, the so-called modern state of Israel, that's not the Jews claiming it anew. It's always been ours. It's just that since 1948, we've been, in essence, permitted by the non-Jewish world to have an army, an organized army. But Jews have lived in the land of Israel throughout all of history. It was given to us by God. It's not something that anyone else could ever own other than us. God gave it to us. If you're talking about the force, meaning that when Israel got the statehood of 1948 and so on, that's nonsensical simply because in 1948, the amount of Arabs that lived in the land of Israel was a fraction of the amount of Arabs that live in Israel today, meaning they increased, they went up drastically, tenfold. Whereas the amount of Jews that lived in the Muslim countries before 1948 was nearly completely wiped out. Either they killed them or they forced them out. So if you're talking about who is more guilty than the other, or who's guilty at all here, it's not really a question if you actually know anything about history. Rabbi, are you American? No. I was born in Israel. I'm Israeli, but I've been in America for most of my life. Do you support Netanyahu? No, I don't support anyone that is against the Torah. You're forcibly removing the Palestinians when the Talmud directly says no to you. No, the Talmud does not say not to remove the Palestinians. In fact, the Torah itself tells us that any nation that lives in the land of Israel is not allowed to live there if they're idol worshippers or they're against the Jewish people. So in fact, if the law of the Torah was governing the land of Israel today, there wouldn't be even a single Palestinian in Israel. So I'm not really sure what you think you know, but your knowledge is simply wrong. Rabbi, I heard during a rebuke of Job by Hashem, It was both a rebuke, but also God promising Job and us that he will restore us so long as we are faithful to the Shema. Okay? Is marijuana allowed based on Genesis 1:29? It seems like if man has dominion over the herbs and seeds, he would be allowed to smoke them. No, marijuana is not allowed according to the Torah. In fact, Rav Moshe Feinstein, paskins la'alacha that any Jew that smokes marijuana or any type of drugs electively is considered in the same level as a ben soreh u'moreh. Ben soreh u'moreh is a wayward child that would get the death penalty. Why? Because when you are electively altering your state of mind, which is what marijuana does, then you're not fit to serve Hashem. You're not allowed to pray. You're not allowed to learn Torah. And in essence, you are going against Hashem. You're not allowed to ever put yourself there electively. Now, if you have no choice because you have medicine or something like that, you have chronic pain, things of that nature, then obviously there's permissions. But to electively get high is forbidden according to the Torah. And the Gemara mentions it. I have actually several lectures about drug addiction and also the Torah perspective of drugs. What cemented your belief, or what event? Well, if you want to know my whole journey of why I became religious and so on, there's a film we made about it. It's called Hashem Took Back His Millions. That at least gives you an idea of the beginning stages of why I went from being a Wall Street executive making millions of dollars to being a rabbi teaching people the truth for free. So it's not exactly for money reasons, because there's let's just say that. Now, as far as what happened since then, well, I continued to learn Torah, and the more Torah that you learn, the more knowledge you have, the more belief you have, and the more actions you take to continue to support that belief, continue to build further on that belief. The more Torah you learn, the more you'll know God and not just believe in God. Why can't I guard my eyes in a mixed gym like anywhere else in the world that I go? I work out for a purpose, not to look at women anyways. Rabbi, thank you for everything. Now, although you believe that you can guard your eyes, there's an halacha, which is a Torah prohibition, to put yourself in a place that you have certain risk. Meaning, if you are simply walking in the streets to go to work, then it's not a certainty that you will see immodest women and immorality. You're going, maybe the street is empty, maybe the street is full, maybe the people that are walking there are all men. Whereas when you go to a gym or when you go to a beach that has men and women there, then it's an absolute certainty that you will see immorality, that you will see immodesty. And you're not allowed to take those types of risks with your neshama. Now, if you truly are working out for the sake of physical fitness, then you know, as well as I do, that going to a mixed gym is not your only option. You could either go to a men-only gym, or you could simply get weights and put them in your house. And I know it doesn't look like it, but when I was young, when I was a teenager, I used to be a junior bodybuilder. I squatted 805 pounds. Okay, I used to bench press. I do sets with 225 pounds, and bench press. I think my max was somewhere close to about 400. So I know a thing or two about working out. And guess what? The majority of the exercises that I did, even though I worked out in the gym also, but the big part of the workouts were in my house, sometimes without any weights. Push-ups, sit-ups, all types of other types of exercises. So if you really are working out for the sake of physical fitness, you don't need to go to a gym. Certainly you don't need to go to a mixed gym. So stop lying to yourself and either find a men-only gym or spend a few dollars, order some weights from Amazon, and pump some iron. That's it. Can you highlight Hashem's name with a yellow highlighter marker in the Siddur so you can pay more attention to it when you say Hashem's name? Yes. That's great, Rabbi. We'll do great answers as always. Baruch Hashem. Chazak u'baruch. For taking the answer and applying it to your life. Did you play high school football? Yes. Dear Rabbi, I want from you to bless me that you may convert one day. Well, what are you going to take upon yourself that will give the blessing some type of nourishment? The blessing is is only going to be the water on top of something that a person has to take upon themselves. Are you going to help other people do tshuva by distributing material in your community? Are you going to give maaser to help our organization do it? What are you going to take on yourself to give the blessing some type of juice, for some fuel? Shalom Yerushalayim. Shalom Vacha. How often a week should you listen to Musar? Every day. I donate to your organization. Good that you donate to the organization. Just make sure that you donate as much as you can. It's at least maaser, that you're doing everything you can. Why? Because it's not because we need. It's because you need. The more you do to help Am Yisrael do tshuva, the more merit you will have for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to say, yes, this is one of the best ones among the nations, and I want to give them as a present to my people. That's what our sages teach us, that righteous converts are the gifts that Hashem gives to the Jewish people. How does he choose who's going to convert and who's not? And this is in the Kuntres by Rabbi Efraim in his book. He brings multiple sources for this. He looks among the nations. He says, who's the best ones? Who is the best from the German nation? The best one from the French nation? Best one from the Spanish nation? The best one from the Portuguese nation? He says, who is the best one? And he takes those and he gives them an opening to become part of the Jewish people as a gift to the Jewish people. So how do you become the best among the nations? By helping his people do tshuva. By helping his people do tshuva, whether it's through donating your time, your efforts, obviously being righteous, following what you're supposed to. The better you make yourself, the more you are becoming the ultimate present that Hashem will want to give not only to you, but to the entire Jewish people. You'll become our present, and we're looking forward to it. So keep doing what you're doing, and even more of what you can. Keep pushing yourself, and BeEzrat HaShem, Hashem will help you. And I can't wait to have another present. Do you know that one of my presents, one of my dear presents, one of our presents, one of Am Yisrael's presents, just had a baby, which means that the gift that Hashem gave us is already bringing more gifts to Am Yisrael. So this is an amazing thing. That's why righteous converts are amazing. The more you know about converts, the more you realize how easy it is to love them. Okay. Oh, what? Sorry, 2 hours. Is ORB kosher? Efraim Goldberg does the kashrut there. Is his conversion kosher? Efraim Goldberg, although he's an apikoros and that brings missionaries and other heretics to his shul, he gives a stage to other heretics, he has a position in a lot of different things in Florida, and even outside of Florida. But just because somebody works somewhere doesn't mean that it disqualifies the entire entity. Because remember, the kashrut of the meat or a restaurant or so on is mainly dependent on who is the mashgiach. Who's the mashgiach? Who's overseeing that they're buying kosher meat? Who's overseeing that they're washing the vegetables? Who's overseeing that they're following all the kosher laws? It's certainly not Efraim Goldberg. Why? He has a multi-million-dollar job at the BRS and other things that he does. So he's not a mashgiach at every restaurant or any restaurant for that matter. He doesn't go and check who's the vegetables or where they buy the meat or anything like that. He has some type of position. But many people have positions at ORB and OU and many other places. So if you look at any organization, you're always going to find somebody that's not exactly the most kosher. In fact, even if you look at the best of rabbis out there, the greatest rabbis, the Gedolei Ador, how about this? Even if you look at the prophets, you'll always find that someone close to them is a Rasha. Didn't we know about Elisha Navi had Gehazi, Rasha Merusha. The Gemara says in Masechet Sanhedrin he has no share of the world to come. What do you think? Elisha Navi was the only one that had a wicked person next to him? Unfortunately, there's always some bad apple here and there. So that bad apple obviously doesn't disqualify Elisha chas v'shalom, and certainly Micha doesn't disqualify Moshe Rabbeinu chas v'shalom, and so on and so forth. So you have organizations out there that overall do what they're supposed to, do good, do what the Torah says, but they may have some employees or people that are involved in them that are not exactly the most kosher. So what do you do then? You have to determine if those non-kosher people are actually affecting the product or not, actually affecting the halacha or not. So when you see that, then you realize that Efraim is not a mashgiach in any restaurant, at least not to my knowledge, unless they fired him from BRS and he needs to get a new job. I don't think he's going to become a mashgiach at any restaurant. He makes too much money right now for that. I think a mashgiach barely makes minimum wage these days. Efraim is making 7 figures. What's the best thing to do on Tisha B'Av? Learn Musar and pray to Hashem. The Jews believe in Gan Eden. Will see Hashem. Righteous Jews will go to Gan Eden. Wicked Jews will not go to Gan Eden. Rabbi, did you see that they found an archaeological finding of Moshe Rabbeinu's writings in Egypt yesterday? It's connected to this week's parasha. No, I did not. You could feel free to send it to me. How do you do tshuva for breaking a neder? Oh, it's a very, very big problem to break a neder. You have to go to Talmid Chacham to see if you can get the neder nullified. That's the first thing you need to do. If you can find some way to nullify the neder and find some way that it was never valid to begin with. That's the first thing you need to do. If you can't do that, then if you're going to Talmid Chachamim, they'll tell you what to do. But that's the first thing you need to do. Go to a serious Talmid Chacham and explain to them what happened, and they'll see if they can find a way for your neder not to be valid in the first place. Can one of the moderators explain why the rabbi isn't engaging? Mamash, chmal. You know what chmal is? It's your language. Well, you don't hear me talk? You don't understand? You're here to learn about Muhammad. Why? Why do you want to learn about Muhammad, the pedophile, the rapist, the murderer for me? You're only going to learn the truth for me. You're only going to learn the truth from me, that he was a pedophile, that he was a rapist, that he was a murderer, that he was illiterate. That's what you're going to learn about Muhammad from me. Now, I know you don't want to learn that. You want to learn that he was good. You want to learn that he was righteous. You're not going to learn that from me, because here you only learn the truth, but you're not interested in the truth. You're chmal. You want to be a donkey for the rest of your life. You want to be smart. You want to learn the truth. Then stop saying stupid things. You want to learn the truth, I'd be more than happy to teach. But if you use the brain that Hashem gave you, use it the right way at least. Okay, we're almost done. We'll take maybe one or two questions. We're finished. Why is the Israeli parliament not overthrown today and the Holy Sanhedrin put instead? What is needed halachically to have a Sanhedrin today? Mashiach to come. Once Mashiach comes, we'll have a Sanhedrin. Until then, we're not going to have a Sanhedrin. And that answers the first question too. Once the Mashiach comes, there's not going to be any more Israeli government. Mashiach's going to be a king. Can I listen to music in my car, stressed out in traffic tomorrow? Listen to a Shir Torah. Why you have to listen to music? If you're a Jew, it's 9 days, don't listen to music. Listen to a Shir Torah instead. At least it'll improve your spiritual feelings and psychological state and your life overall. Why listen to music? Listen to Shir Torah. We have 15,000 Shirei Torah in multiple languages. I'm sure you could find one that's decent. What do you think about the future of America as far as the crybabies from TikTok, they didn't like that the responses they got, so they complained, and they to TikTok police. The Hamals from TikTok complained to the Hamals from TikTok. What do I think about America? What does it mean? What do I think about America? What do you think of the future of America as far as anti-Semitism is concerned? It seems like the hatred is growing massively. With the media, things happen faster. Yeah, well, this will continue. This will continue. I have an entire series about it called War of Amalek. Is a false Mashiach considered the anti-Mashiach? Who exactly is Al-Milus? False Mashiach is not anti-Mashiach. There's a lot of false Mashiachs. We've had countless of them over the years. There's actually an entire book full of stories of false Mashiachs that we've had throughout the generations, whether it's Shabtai Tzvi, Yaakov Frank, Yoshke, and many, many others that have been false Mashiachs, and there will continue to be ones until the real Mashiach comes. So that's, as far as anti-Mashiach, there's no such thing as anti-Mashiach. There's the Erev Rav, which is the people that will fight against the Mashiach. And we have an entire series about the Erev Rav, which is called the War of Amalek. Okay, all right, guys. I think I've answered sufficient amount. Baruch Hashem. Rabotai Karim, Hashem bless each and every single one of you to continue learning Torah with us, to continue doing Chesed with us, to continue growing closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and those of you that are in the process of Tshuva, may HaKadosh Baruch Hu continue to strengthen you and get closer to Him. And those of you that are in a process of conversion, may HaKadosh Baruch Hu strengthen you and succeed your path and to get you to exactly where you want and need to be. And BeEzrat HaShem will be a smooth and successful process. And may HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring all those that are looking for a shidduch, the righteous shidduch, to be able to build a Beit Ne'eman BeYisrael. And BeEzrat HaShem, may HaKadosh Baruch Hu awaken each of our neshamot to understand the necessity we all have in helping publicize HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, in helping Am Yisrael do tshuva, in helping the world see the truth for what it is in accordance to the Torah. The more we realize what it is, the more we apply it to our life, the more HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help us succeed in doing it. And if that is something that we'll do, HaKadosh Baruch Hu can bring the Mashiach without all of the pain and agony that would come otherwise. BeEzrat HaShem, we will succeed, and we'll learn again next week. Kol tu b'cha b'atzlacha and Shabbat Shalom.